Om Tat Sat. My humble prostrations to the all-pervading Brahman, to my worshipful Guruji, Swami Jyotirmayanandaji Maharaj, to sage Narada and all other sages and saints, and to each of you divine soul watching today's satsang. We are covering Narada Bhakti Sutras. We are currently on chapter number 3, and today we will be studying sutra number 63. Commentary is by my worshipful Guruji, Swami Jyotirmayanandaji Maharaj, and narrated by myself, Swami Nikhilananda. So let's get started. Chapter 3, Sutra 63. And this is a very important sutra because we had talked about in the last sutra, a devotee must direct his attention towards the removal of the impurities of his heart. And in this sutra, Sage Narada guides us how to remove those impurities. So let's get started. The sutra is Stri Dhan Nastik Vairi Charitram Na Shravaniyam. Let's repeat. Stri Dhan Nastik Vairi Charitram Na Shravaniyam. Meaning, talks of sexual nature. Talks of women, and for men women, and for women men. Restraint of sexual talks is the first one. Talks of wealth. Then non-believers, people who are atheists, and enemies, people who don't support the path, should not be listened to. So on this path, if we are trying to purify ourselves, these are the things we have to be cautious and careful about. Just like a flame, you see the slight flame here, which is fairly steady because there is no wind. But if there was a lot of wind, this flame would be extinguished quickly. So therefore, a serious aspirant on the path of bhakti should be careful of these. Sexual talks, wealth, non-believers, and enemies. He should try to stay away from this. This is the guidance from Sage Narada. I'm not saying this is easy, but if we have to become pure and if we have to enjoy the bhakti rasa, therefore this is to get to para bhakti. Therefore most people don't reach that stage. They go somewhere high and then they fall off, or they say it's not worth it, or why should I give up so many pleasures of this. So they are not qualified aspirants. Qualified aspirant is one who is like climbing a mountain, persistent, and he is putting in his effort and he is determined as well. So this is Sage Narada's guidance. So let's move on to the explanation. The path of devotion is characterized by the unfoldment of feeling, or bhava. Bhava are emotions, feeling. The heart of a human being must be rid of worldly impurities such as anger, greed, lust, pride, and the manifold forms of vanity. Remember, for God to come in you and for that to reveal its energy, we have to become as pure, or try to be as pure as God's creation. Thus, only in the stream of pure feeling we feel free to mature into a sparkling river of devotion. When that happens, then the pure feeling overwhelms us and we feel more and more bhakti rasa coming from us. But if we have impure vasanas are subtle desires that have formed in the chitta, or the mind stuff, through numerous embodiments. So this is not something that can be done quickly. And a lot of people want quick result, unfortunately, in today's world. And so they are not qualified aspirants. They will just have to go through the process and be very patient. So sincere aspirants are not in a hurry. They understand that what has taken many embodiments, lifetimes of many lives, will take some time and effort to cleanse. And therefore, just to give up a bad habit of addiction in this world, imagine how much discipline is required to give up the alcohol addiction or smoking addiction. Here we are talking about things that have come on for many lives, and they are now popping up. So even though they may not be directly from from this life. Therefore, sage Narada warns us that the impure vasanas have to be rooted out, because they are a result of numerous embodiments. Those deep rooted tendencies, however, towards our anger, passion, violence, and other negative sentiments are led to maturity through worldly association. So, the more worldly we get, the more these vices get a stronghold. Think of your garden with a lot of weeds. If you're not maintaining your grass properly, the weeds will take over, and everywhere you will find it very troublesome to keep your grass healthy. So therefore, a lot of effort is needed to maintain the grass. The weeds come by themselves. Similarly, all these anger, passion, etc., these are bad qualities or vices that we have to remove. Therefore, to avoid worldly talk, one must avoid talks of sex, wealth, non-believers, and enemies. There are many others, but these are the four key ones that Sage Narada is trying to guide us, so as to that these are the main ones that consume most of our thoughts and time, which will only serve the stimuli and awaken the impure sentiments of the heart. So think about Narada's intention. It's not that he's trying to put us through a very rigorous washing machine, but he is trying to do it with compassion. Of course, we are being put through the washing machine, so we get cleansed, we get washed, we come out clean. And unless we are willing to do that, this is then not the path for us. We are only at a superficial level. So just so we know and we have clear expectations of where we are going with this sutra and with our spiritual journey with bhakti. So talks of sex, what happens? They awaken a passionate thoughts which lead to many evils. We already know that. That's our practical experience. A heart dominated by kama or passion is unfit for enshrining your favorite deity, for example Rama, Hanumanji, Sita Ma, Devi, or any god that you pray to in your heart, because that has to be pure first. And as long as even a tinge of passion lurks in the mind of an aspirant, he will be unable to experience the thrill of divine sentiment emanating with devotion. So therefore, first that has to be worked upon. And that's where they say a lot of people, a lot of aspirants have to do sadhana, sometimes for decades, because of this cleansing process. Each soul progresses differently. So if you've already done a lot of sadhana in the past and these are not bothering you, you will progress faster. But if you have not and you are starting now, it will take longer. So it depends. Each person, therefore, a guru guides each disciple differently according to their evolution. So there is no one size fits all solution on this holy path. Though devotional literature abounds with amorous terms, an aspirant should not commit the error of considering them a pretext for promoting lustful illusions of the mind. Swami Jyotirmayananda ji is very mindful in guiding us towards this, because a lot of people get confused when they look at read Srimad Bhagavatam and they look at the amorous text about the feelings of gopis towards Krishna, etc. But those are deeper, there are deeper mystical meanings that people don't know, and most of them get to ruin by trying to emulate or think about that in a perverted sort of way. And that's not the intent at all of the scriptures. So just as Vedic texts repeatedly refer to the state of sleep to illustrate the negation of the world process, because when you are sleeping, what's happening? You are not in the world. So therefore the sages and saints guide you that, look, the samadhi is like deep sleep, except you are awake, you know what's happening. So they use that as an example to help us understand it. So similarly, passionate love is referred to in the bhakti texts merely to illustrate the height of spiritual ecstasy experienced by a devotee, wherein all worldly limitations are transcended. That is the only purpose of trying to guide us human people who are mired in the meshes of the world process and we are deep in ignorance, to kind of give us something to hold on to, because many of us just value that sexual experience as the ecstasy of our joy. and therefore you see so many scandals, so many people running into problems also. But this is the reason why the scriptures are trying to use that as the height of our spiritual ecstasy, because even in that experience we are trying to become one with our partner. We are trying to unique that to experience that oneness, and from a spiritual standpoint is much different, totally different than this sexual talk and act that we sometimes get confused about, and we try to find it through those ways, but they are totally opposed, totally wrong actually. So brahmacharya, the practice of restraint and sublimation, is emphasized in every aspect of yoga, and it is one of the most important yamas or restraints to be practiced, brahmacharya. See, Satya, Ahimsa, Asteya, Brahmacharya, and Aparigraha. These are the basic yamas or the do's. So we have to maintain strict celibacy if we want to walk on this path. Therefore, in today's Kali Yuga, where material things are so easy and people getting intoxicated and they are going into all kinds of worldly things, they are not qualified for this path unless they make a conscious decision to change. Anybody can change. They are fully qualified if they decide not to do that anymore and follow this path. It's not closed to anybody, it's totally open. But for people who don't want to discipline themselves and also expect instant results, unfortunately that experience is not easy and not possible through this path, through this direction that Sage Narada is guiding us. I'm taking a little bit longer because this is a very confusing subject for many people, especially in many religions. But Sanatan Dharma, people have to understand that to follow this, we have to be very sincere, and we have to be willing to give up the things that we have been so addicted to. Similarly, when one indulges in talks of wealth, the hidden sentiment of greed is nourished, right? How can the divine feeling unfold in a heart that wants more and more for perishable objects of the world? You want more of this, more of that. So many people continue to turn their wistful eyes towards object, expecting to receive favor from them. But alas, how can the objects that are inert give you happiness? They are illusory themselves. So the mind of a devotee therefore must be greedy for satsanga, good association, seva, serving humanity, and the performance of devotional practices. So why should we then give up these experiences that are so much more enjoyable in the world process? Because Sage Narada says that the bliss you feel through devotion far surpasses all these experiences combined. Just a drop of that experience is more than all these experiences combined. So there is a method to the madness. There is a reason why these sages and saints are asking us to give up these intense pleasurable objects, because they know that these are taking us towards destruction and vices, whereas we have to become pure and therefore achieve the taste of honey, so to speak. By listening to talks about non-believers or people who are atheists, for example, or associating with non-believers, one can easily come under the sway of the philosophy of materialism. And to a non-believer, this world is nothing but an accidental chaos and matter. The Big Bang Theory, suddenly something burst and the world erupted. It doesn't quite work like that, although we have been forced to believe those things. But we all know that there has to be a cause for every result, for every action. Therefore, this precision with which the world and the cosmos and the universe operates, there is a deep intelligence. And therefore, the term, even the scientists these days are admitting, the God particle and the power of everything, the God energy in everything. So they're trying to prove we are humans with limited abilities, and therefore that energy that has created this, and therefore the journey on that path is called self-realization or mukti or viveka, and using all our abilities, faculties to get to that. that end result. But to a devotee, the world pulsates with the glory of God alone. So therefore, a devotee doesn't want to get into debate with atheists or talking about wealth. Whenever you're going to friends, everybody's talking about their nicer car, nicer home, nicer clothes, nicer vacations, and this and that, and all that keeps you just tied to the world process. It does not help you with the spiritual evolution. So for those serious sadhakas who are on this path and who want to genuinely grow, for them these things should be restrained. So following the same reasoning, one should not listen to talks about enemies or inimical personalities. So therefore these impressions will stifle the sprouting sentiments of bhakti in the same way that thorny weeds stifle the growth of a flowering plant. So we have to appreciate the wisdom of sage Narada, who has touched upon these four key problems that keep us bound and keep us in the realm of our vices, and we don't grow, and they don't help us to become pure. So therefore, if we want total purity, we should try to be very mindful of these things. An aspirant must therefore eradicate lust, greed, lack of faith in God, anger and hatred in order to unfold divine love in his heart. And anybody who is sincere on this path and makes an effort is blessed by God. He is encouraged on this path, and the divine plan starts to unfold for him. So this sutra was very deep, and I know we took some time, but it was important that we understand the different terms that sage Narada has talked about. So when we are trying to purify ourselves, we can refer back to this sutra and be aligned with his thinking. This is Swami Nikhilananda. Om Tat Sat.